All right, so you all are welcome to put any questions that you have today in the chat or unmute yourself. You have the controls to do that at any time. All new people will come in as muted, but you have total ability to unmute yourself and ask a question. If you want to stop me, can also use the chat to ask questions, and I will be watching them. So I have my presentation screen here, but up here on my interactive board, I have your little faces if you have to raise your hand or wave at me in the Zoom tool, as well as the chat. So I will be trying to monitor that as I'm presenting. The links on the screen right here, again, the first one is to sign in for today so that you can get your PD credit. And the second one is a copy of this presentation. The caps matter in Bitly. So the sign in is lowercase ERate, and the presentation is capital LTC 470 FY23. So again, this will be the same presentation for all of our trainings. Let's do a next slide. So welcome to the ERate season for 2023. We are applying for services for next school year, the 23-24 school year, and this is the 25th anniversary of ERate. So happy birthday to ERate. I'm glad I got at least a woo from somebody in the audience. I seem to be the only one excited about it. If you do see me at the IDEA conference coming up or anything, January, February, I do have little happy birthday ERate stickers. So seek me out and ask for your happy birthday ERate sticker. But pretty thrilled that we have 25 years in ERate. That's a lot of money nationally and into the state of Illinois for connectivity. So that's pretty exciting. I think I know everybody on the call today, but just in case you need an update, my name is Mindy Fiscus, and I am the Director of Government Affairs for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. I also serve as one of your 2 state ERate coordinators. The other state ERate coordinator is Eric Grocky, and he is at the State Board of Ed. He serves in the role. He's very helpful and can answer your questions as well. But he does all of the verification for us. So as we get into the program, if you ever get a notice that says, I need somebody to validate a third-party validation of your student count and free and reduced lunch rate, that is Eric, because he has access to the ISB SIS system and can generate those reports for us. I do the trainings across the state, both virtually and face-to-face when I'm asked to. And so together we serve as a team to support all of your ERate needs. I also serve on the CETA board. So CETA is the State Education Technology Directors Association. I am our voting member from the state of Illinois, and it says here that I'm the board secretary, and I am currently, but last night I was voted to be chair-elect. So I will be the chair of that board in a couple of years, chair-elect for the 2023 calendar year. And then I serve on some other organizations and teams representing the voice of schools in Illinois. One of those is the Illinois Classroom Connectivity Project that focuses on connectivity across the state. And that's a partnership with ISB, the Department of Innovation and Technology, the Governor's Office, and the Office of Broadband. So I'm happy to be the Illinois voice on that project, as well as one of my fun passion projects is to work with the STEAM Expo at the State Fair each year. And I bring it up because it really was a fantastic event the last 2 years. It is the very first week of school for most of you. It's the second week of the State Fair, but we set up and run an interactive science, technology, engineering, arts, and math expo. There's some higher ed partners, community colleges, other organizations within the state, but we do some hands-on science and technology things there at the expo. It's a really fun event. If you're interested in kicking off your year with some STEAM activities and doing a field trip to the State Fair, please do reach out to me. We had a few school districts do it as a field trip last year, and the response from them was extremely positive. So if you're interested in introducing your year with some STEAM, please let me know. That again is in August of each year. For those of you who are not familiar with the Learning Technology Center, we are a state-funded organization that's been around since the 90s. So we have been in different organizations across the 20-some years. Currently, we are one statewide organization, so it took us some time to get to that. Our main office is out of Rantoul, but we all work out of the regional offices of education in which we live. So my office is here in Robinson, Illinois. This is where we make the Heath candy bar. So if you're a fan, you're welcome. It's the only place that the Heath candy bar is made, is here in Robinson, Illinois by the Hershey Company. But I formerly served as the LTC director for Area 6, which is southern part of Illinois, before coming on here. This is my 23rd year at the LTC. So I'm almost as old as ERate. Pretend that we started when I was 1 and I'm only 23 or 24. Our focus areas at the LTC have expanded since we've gone to a statewide organization. We have people on staff who are service coaches and will come into your school districts and help do integration coaching. We contract those people out on a day-by-day contract. So if you're interested in entering into having a technology integration coach in your district and want to see what that looks like, we might have somebody that can come and work with your district. We also have new people on staff that are specialists in cybersecurity, as well as STEAM activities, and all kinds of traditional supports that you've seen from your LTC. So if you have not been to our website in a while, and this is one of your, individual interactions with the LTC, do check it out. Lots of cool professional learning opportunities and supports for IT integration and all things ed tech. Also, while you're there, if you have not signed up for our LTC community, please do so. I almost beg of you to sign up for the community and the funding and access channel within that community, because that is where I send my updates. So this morning, I found out that the eligible services list for ERate hit the market yesterday. So we're ready to take a look at what those eligible services are for this year. I will be posting later today when we get done with this training out to the community. Hey, here's the eligible services list and my thoughts and comments on it, but I'm going to share those with you guys today as well. That is where I will share updates to trainings and things that are happening with ERate and other programs. So I put this slide up here for our newbies. I'm finding since the change of COVID, we've got a lot of new people dealing with ERate. And if you are feeling a little like, oh my goodness, this is more than I thought that it was, that's a normal feeling. So please do know that ERate can be overwhelming. I totally recognize that you all wear 100 hats and I wear 5 or 6. And so my 5 or 6 hats, one of the main hats is ERate. Please know if ever you get something in your email or in one of our updates, you don't understand an acronym, or you think, what kind of ERate Greek are they speaking here? Mindy, please translate. That is what I do. So I stay appraised on the program and its rules so that you do not have to. Please know that you can reach out to me at any time. But going back to that community, it's a really great place to ask your questions as well, especially if you're like, okay, wait a second, I'm starting to get these bids in on network equipment. Do I really need this expensive one versus this one? It is a really great place to go out and ask all of the other partners across the state that file ERate. Hey, can somebody help me out here and tell me the difference between these two products? Sometimes we get some really good support from our IT group in the state to be able to explain the differences and really help you know what to do as you're moving forward. But know that you are not alone and that we are all in this together. I just wanted to do a quick touch because I've had a lot of people the last couple of years that you've either asked for something that did not get approved or asked for something, got it approved, and then when you turn in the invoice, they say, hey, that's not in this correct category or something like that. We've had a lot of, it feels like to me, a lot of appeals and things going on with USAC and the FCC this last couple of years. So please know that when the program was created 25 years ago, it was done so with legislation. So Congress put into law a program that would support education and getting connected. ERate actually stands for education rate, and it is meant to give everyone a discount on their internet and phones at the time. Since then, phones have been removed from the program, and it is just internet and network equipment based. But they gave that program to the FCC to manage, along with some other funded programs through the legislature. And you can see those on the universal service screen. FCC contracts with the nonprofit USAC to manage and roll out and do the application process for the program. So there are many times that you come to me and say, hey, I got this denial, or I'm not getting this paid. Why is that? And we go ahead and we ask USAC to reconsider, and they say, that's not something that we can do. That's a program rule. And if that's the case, we have to appeal to the FCC to get some changes made. And that's a slower process, but it is something that we've successfully managed to the last couple of years for several districts. So if at any time you find you've gotten what you feel is the incorrect answer from USAC, please do reach out to me and let me know, and I can help you through that appeal process with the FCC, and we can give it, our best shot to see if we can get something overturned or funded. But that is the organization of how it works is the FCC and USAC. So sometimes when we're wanting new things, and we'll talk about that on the eligible services list page, when we want to see new things eligible for the program, like cybersecurity, sometimes we take our pleas to the FCC, and even sometimes they say, hey, that's going to take congressional action. And so we're working in the advocacy channels to express your needs and wants for the program moving forward. Today, we are doing the 470. It is a start to the application process. It's considered the competitive bidding form, and it is also what I like to call, in loose terms, the wish list. So you are going to be applying for your 470 today for any kind of new services or products that you are wanting for the 23-24 school year. So we work ahead of time for next school year. The program does require 28 days before you file your 471. So you have to have an open bidding period for at least 28 days. So I try to do as many of our trainings and support as possible in December so that you can leverage that Christmas break and that holiday break to use that 28-day time frame so that you're ready to go when the 471 opens in January. When is that going to open in January is a great question. So we usually hear in December when they're going to open that up. It is typically the second week of January, and typically due and closes mid-March. So they have not made that announcement yet. Typically it comes after the eligible services list, which hit last night. And so I do expect that anytime now we'll hear some kind of an announcement of when that 471 window will open. And of course, close, what the deadline will be for this year. We do support for our 471 applications like this training as well. So we'll have another series of trainings for that. But do know that that is not available. Like right now, if you were to log in and try to file a 471, it would be last year's form, and it would give you a little warning box that says this is a previous year's form because that window has not opened. Right now in the 470 and between the 470 and 471 period, there is also the time where you are able to go in and edit your own profiles in the system. They will lock that down the day before they open the 471. So we're going to use that opportunity today. If you happen to have your student counts with you and can update your student counts and who's eligible for free and reduced lunch, you can follow along with me while we do that. If you do not have those with you today, that's okay. But please do go ahead and get those counts and try to get those numbers updated before that 471 opens, because that's when they'll shut that down for you. If you miss the opportunity, you can always do so with a customer service support or a phone call to USAC. It's just easier to do it yourself when the window is open to you right now. When we file our 471, what I really need you to have on hand is a chosen provider, and we'll talk about the review process and who you're going to choose and make sure you have those rubrics, etc. But you really need to have an idea of what that looks like moving forward. If you have any contracts to sign, etc., you can do so after that 28 days, and even an accepted bid is considered a contract in the program. So many times when we get ready to file our 471, we say, hey, I realize you're accepting that bid today. Why don't you go ahead and sign and date that and then email that back to the provider to sign and date so that it can demonstrate to USAC that you are moving forward and both parties are aware of the agreement to move forward with these products. That's considered a contract in ERate. And many times in the review process after the 471, they do ask to see those documents. You are welcome to keep them on file at your district and also encouraged to upload them to the portal so that you have them readily available digitally when you're asked for them if you are. On that 471, we will specifically be filling in, I'm going to buy these products and services from these providers at this cost. So it is a very detailed form. Today has some updates, and then we'll be filling out the form, and we'll take a couple or so hours to do that. The 471, we've set aside 3 hours, but I always lock in another hour or so after to answer questions and help support, because some of you might be asking for just a couple of things, and your process might go a little quicker and easier with the 471, where others have like a whole laundry list of things they're asking for, and it takes a little bit longer if you've got a list. So we will try to provide ample time for that in our trainings. When we've turned in our 471 and gone through a review sometime in the spring or summer, typically I have seen them come as late as fall, but it's usually in the spring or summer, we start receiving funding commitment letters. The 486 is the most missed form of the process here. That is your confirmation form. So once you've gotten your funding confirmation, you reply back with a 486 to say, yes, I am moving forward in this project. It is supposed to be that last ditch effort to allow you to notify USAC if you're not moving forward with something. It is also the form where we certify that we're filtering harmful content from our students. If you miss that form, which is typically due the end of October, you will get a message from USAC that says, oh, it looks like you've missed that form. You have 10 days to complete that. I don't send out reminders or notifications to say, hey, you need to file this form, because I know that USAC is going to. So please don't stress if you do get that notification. That just means that you've missed it. But I do encourage you to kind of mark your calendar for the first week of August or the first week of September, you know, the first of the month somewhere before the end of October, to remind you to file that form. And while you're at it, mark your calendar for the same day to go ahead and collect money from the previous year if you need to. So a good target date for that is September 1st, but I know that that's kind of the start of school for many of you in a busy time. Pick a day that works for you. It is the 486 and 472 season. The 472 is how you collect your money at the end of the year. If you have paid your full bill the whole time, you file a 472 bear to collect those funds. And then if you get discounts on your bills and you only pay your discounted share portion, so you're like 20, 30%, depending on your discount level, and the bill is just discounted for you and you only pay your portion, the provider will fill out the 474 SPY form. So those are your two options on discounts. But if you just want to go ahead and give yourself a reminder sometime in the fall to file that 486 and 472, if necessary, I try to create video supports, and I do Zoom face-to-face meetings with people to answer questions that you might have in order to follow along with the video or ask me some questions. We do those in the fall. We don't typically have training dates like this. Speaking of training dates, so this is our 470 and 471 workshop dates for this year for the 23-24 application cycle. You, of course, are all here at one of our virtual December dates on the 15th. We do have a couple of those more coming up. I've done a last call on January 10th. The 470 form would technically not be due until probably mid-February, but I try to wrap up the 470s and move on to the 471s in February, in essence, for our support. We will start these virtual workshops moving forward in February for the 471. Please note, these are the LTC sponsored dates. If you went to our website to register, there are some dates that have a dash location after them. So if you were to go today, you might see January 9th dash Mount Vernon. There are some ROEs who have asked me to come out face-to-face, and I'm happy to do so if an ROE says that they can get 10 or more people in the room to file. We are happy to come out and do those presentations face-to-face. I do know that we've had for the 470 face-to-face presentations in Charleston, Litchfield, Vandalia, and now we're going to have a Mount Vernon. And so I expect that we will have those same locations in the 471. If it's something you would like to do face-to-face, please know that we'll be scheduling those and adding those to the calendar as well. This is just a slide deck because I get a lot of people who say to me throughout the year, hey, what was that ERate 1-800 number? It is an 888 number. It's customer service. In particular, the last couple of weeks, you may have received an email that said, hey, we want to update your administrator of record in the system. And I'll show you where that is today to see if that is accurate. They are going to be moving invoicing, the BEAR form and the 474 form into the EPC system. Moving forward in the spring, and they really want to make sure that they have an accurate person responsible for your district on record before they do so. So they're asking you to update your administrators. We're finding that a lot of people who file the E-rate are maybe not the superintendent for the district, and the superintendent has changed a couple of times, maybe 3 times really. And we have a former superintendent's name in as the official record. And so they're asking that you go ahead and update that to your current administration so that they have that information right for that administrator record as they move invoicing into the system. I do also offer support and help for the ECF. So I put that 800 number in here as well. That is a different line of support. So we have the regular support line for E-rate and the support line for ECF as well. I have both on Post-it notes right here by my desk as well. So if you email me, I can get them to you, but I just thought it would be beneficial to put it on a slide deck. USEC has also started creating some great E-rate webinars. They will record those webinars and make them available to you, similar to the support that I do, but they move very slow in nature, in my opinion. So if you find that I'm talking too fast, you're brand new to the program and need extra support, they've got some really great trainings that they will do for you on the website if you're interested. So let's talk just a minute about what we can get for the program. So as I said, the eligible service list hit last night. So this is a brand new link that will take you to the eligible services list for this year. You're going to find that it looks remarkably similar to last year. So there are some clarifications and things that I find is helpful in helping navigate where things should be filed for category 2 in particular. But there was a big outreach this year for additional services for category 1 and 2 in the program. And they did not make any major changes to the eligible services list, but they did say, we're going to put together a open comment period, and we're going to really look into some of those changes. They revolve around cybersecurity as well as Wi-Fi on buses. So that's something that they're really looking at. They did have a petition, and they addressed it in the eligible services list for Verizon Wireless, who wanted to actively make wireless access available in the system. It really always has been, but there are some school locations that have been served now just solely by wireless access, and they wanted to make sure and make a note that that is an eligible service for those who don't have wired access. They can get that wireless access as well. And we'll take a look today at how to apply for that. But really the wireless option is usually more expensive than a wired option. And so they encourage you to do the wired options if possible. Satellite options are even available for the program, but usually they fund that wireless connectivity only if that's the most cost affordable option for your district. It is a work in progress with cybersecurity. We had hoped that they would cover more of your firewalls this coming year. I am optimistic in the future that we'll see more of that. Right now, the catch on the firewall is kind of, if you pay for, just for the simplicity of math, $1,000 firewall, the program only covers basic firewall service. So you might find that that firewall is 60% eligible for the program. So out of that $1,000, you can only cover 600 of it. That 400 would be deemed as either next generation firewall services, advanced services, or filtering. And so we're hoping to have some movement on that in the future, that they would cover more of those firewalls. Many people petitioning and saying next generation is now current generation, and fund our whole firewall, please. And so that's kind of where we're moving in the message that we're trying to get out. If nothing else in cybersecurity could be eligible, that's the great first step. And so that's what we're asking for right now. I do believe that there will be some funding for cybersecurity in the future. I just don't know if that will flow through the E-rate program. That big of a change for cybersecurity and the amount of money that it would take to do cybersecurity is still kind of being negotiated and up in the air. And I've been in meetings where the commissioners have said they just need somebody with more expertise in cybersecurity to make some recommendations. They're not sure if that's their realm, or if it should be better handled by another department like Homeland Security or something like that. So we do know that it is an issue, and moving forward, we'll see what that looks like. There is some kind of a balance here in the FCC. There's meant to be 5 commissioners on the panel, and right now we have 4. We're waiting for a new commissioner to be named by the legislature. We've got 2 conservative commissioners and 2 liberal commissioners, and there's a discussion about cybersecurity and things like that. There's a concern by some that adding new services like that would really put a strain financially on the program, and that we would be better off taking a look at how that program is funded while we take on new services. So the program is primarily funded through your traditional telecom providers and taxes collected there. It is not collecting taxes from cell phone providers, and it is also not collecting taxes from cable companies. And so as many people have moved their home internet services to cell phone and cable companies, there is kind of a push to like get some taxes from those entities if we're going to expand what's eligible for the program. So no, it's kind of sitting standard for this next year, but there is a lot of conversation going on. When we get to category 2 and we get into the application, you'll see that there are 3 subcategories in category 2. This is my pet peeve of the program. I think subcategories are stupid, especially if they're going to give you a budget, but they do and are asking you to break your request down into subcategories. Those are network equipment, maintenance, and management. And the management is pretty clear. Like that's when you pay a company to maintain your network for you. So a monthly or annual fee to a company that would maintain your network for you, either face-to-face or virtual, and the fee that goes along with that. The maintenance is what gets a little bit complicated in the system. Sometimes a license for a piece of equipment is considered maintenance because it is for bugs and fixes and upgrades. Sometimes a license is the operation of that piece of equipment, and it should be considered internal connections. We also have some confusion, and I see it every year when people are asking for maintenance on their lines, maintenance on their cabling or maintenance on their UPS devices. If you are getting new products to replace things, so if you're putting in new wiring or you're getting a new battery to go into that battery backup device or a whole new device, it's really not maintenance on your network. That is really internal connections, network equipment. You're replacing something out. They did put a nice little easy button in the form that I will show you today, so that when you're asking for a product and licensing, you can check that box and also ask for maintenance. And hopefully your providers will be coming back to you with bids that say this license is for the operation of the devices and internal connections, and this additional license is for upgrades, patches, and support. Sometimes they're all built together and it's kind of like a half and half, and we have to figure it out. So that is something that has been a little interesting to navigate the last couple of years. I do have a note at the bottom. End user devices are not eligible for the system. So no Chromebooks, laptops, interactive whiteboards, anything like that. In addition, it also does not cover off-campus access. So there are other programs that cover like Wi-Fi hotspots that you would send home with your students and staff. This program is dedicated to on-campus internet access and network equipment. For category 2, category 1 has no budget. So it doesn't matter whether your internet costs you $500 a month or $5,000 a month. It is eligible for the program either way, but category 2 does have a budget for each district. We are in the middle of our 5-year budget. So we're applying for year 3 for 23-24. And there is a budget tool that you can use for USAC to figure out how much money you've spent and how much you have left to collect. And so we're going to go and do a demo of this tool. It is linked here at the bottom of the screen if you're following along. But we're going to do a demo and show you how much money does exist in your program. Does anybody want me to use them as the example for the tool? Because I'd be happy to do so. I'll also take random volunteers for any of our examples today if you want me to log in and do it as you. Not seeing any hands raised up. Oh, Midwest Central. Okay, fantastic. So we're going to do Illinois on the right to kind of filter down, and I'm going to pick Illinois and then apply. And then type in for me, Todd, what town is Midwest Central in? That's easier for me. Thank you. So I typically go by city because sometimes, and we'll see what it looks like when we get in here. There we go. I don't know that that's how you spelled it, but we'll see. Nope, that is not right. Let's see if we can do. I don't know why the city's not going up. Well, okay, we won't. We'll just do a reset there and we'll go down and we'll try Midwest Central. And that was why I wanted to type in the city, but that didn't work either. The Midwest Community Unit 191 is you. Yes, I think that is correct. The names that are in the E-rate program sometimes aren't always the names that we call our districts. So it is kind of difficult sometimes. Like there, I'll go in and I'll look to find like an Elgin school district. And what I'll find is that Elgin school district is listed as Unit 47 or something like that. Like it's not always, the names don't always match up. So I tend to go by the city. We're going to click on Midwest Central or Midwest Community District 191. It took it out. Midwest 191 and apply. And that will change my chart over here on the left. So when I do it by a city, like if I do Mount Vernon, I get like a laundry list of all of the schools that, and I don't know what I did wrong. I must have typed an MI instead of an MA when I was typing it. But this is your district. What I can tell looking at this is that you're applying as a school district. So when we get into the portal, we'll probably see your district name with a school name underneath it. You do have a consultant on record that you've used in the past. You may or may not be using that consultant now, but there is a consultant in the system for you. It shows that this is the budget for 2021 through 2025. So the last year of this budget will be the 25-26 school year, and that should be the same for everyone. There are 3 buildings within your district and a total student count of 931. So in the system, it calculates your budget by $167 per student. But if any of those 3 buildings has less than 150 students, you will get an extra bonus. So the minimum amount per building that you get is $25,000. So if I was looking at an alternative safe school here, which typically have less than 150 at each site, I would see maybe 3 buildings at $25,000, which is $75,000 total. In your case, the combined budget for your district is $155,000. It says confirmed here. So if you're looking at yours and you see something other than confirmed, it is probably a projected, which means you have not spent any money yet, right? So your budget locks in on the first year that you spend money. We can see here that Midwest Central has spent money. It does show $82,000. Now that might not be totally spent. So this does include this current school year, the 22-23 school year, what is approved. So I guess I should say this funded amount is the approved funded amount. You may still have some products and services that you haven't received yet and turned in the invoices, but they do earmark and say that you have spent this $82,000, meaning that you have $72,000 available for the next 3 years of the program. So this was a great example. Thank you for volunteering. You can see here, if by chance that Todd does not move forward with the projects that he has for this year, or something got canceled even in a previous year that you did not move forward with and did not collect, you do have to file a form. It's called the Form 500 to reduce that amount and return those funds back into your earmarked budget. So back into your checking account to spend. It's also really important to note here that out of this $72,000, you have to cover your non-discounted share. So if there's $72,000 set aside for him to spend, but he's a 70% district, he does have to pay for 30% of that amount. It is not this amount plus 30%. So it is, you figure your 70% of that amount, the E-rate covers the 70 and you cover the 30 or whatever your discount level is. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the budget? Please keep in mind, as you are applying today, it is a wish list. So Todd may decide that he wants to rewire a building, and he may put in today and say, hey, I'd like to rewire this entire building. And then we file our 470 and the bill comes back and it's $100,000 and he only has 70. Or he may say, oh, I can't put all of that money towards one building. I've got some needs at the other 2 buildings as well. Nothing that you file today requires you to move forward. So you could put in for a wiring project and then decide, I'm only going to do half of that, or I'm not going to do that at all. And that is totally okay. This is your wish list, and you can pick and choose what you want once you get your bids in. I've had some questions throughout our trainings about community eligibility provision. So I just want to touch on that for a minute. CEP is a program that will, in essence, allow all of your students to have free lunch, similar to what we had in the waiver during the pandemic. I wanted to kind of touch on it because we had a lot of new schools sign up for CEP this fall. So as we had the waiver and free lunches for all of our students during the pandemic, that ended for this school year. So come the fall, a lot of school districts were having to go out to their students and their families and say, the free lunches are now done for you. Unless you fill out the free and reduced lunch form, you'll be paying for lunch, and we can't give it free to everyone. The community eligibility provision is not new. It's existed for several years. We just didn't have quite as many school districts taking advantage of it as we did after the pandemic. So they did have an open enrollment through September this year that if you wanted to sign up for CEP as a district, you could. What this means is that you could use any identifier to demonstrate that somebody was poor. It's not just filling out that form, right? So you can use any identifier, whether that's homes that are eligible for SNAP or homes that were taking advantage of the kids care insurance, all kinds of different indicators that you could use to indicate that a student's address was eligible for the program. Sometimes they don't fill out the forms, but they would be eligible. And so typically, if you have 60% or higher poverty rating in your district, you would be eligible for CEP. That doesn't mean that you would want to choose to do it. So CEP will give you an amount for all students' lunches. So they take the total amount of students in your district and say, I'm making up the numbers, but say you would get $3.50 a lunch for all of the students in your district. However, if you use the traditional program and you use free and reduced lunch rates, you might get $4 a lunch for everybody who fills out that form. So you get an increased amount per form if you use the traditional way. And some school districts are reporting, I did the math and I can do all my students times the 350. And then I do my eligible free and reduced students times the reimbursement amount that I get in the National School Lunch Program traditional form. And I'm actually going to lose money at my district if I switch to CEP. It's going to be less money for our district that way. And so people will choose not to do CEP. But what I witnessed this fall was a lot of school districts coming out and saying, good news, great news. Everybody here will still get free lunch. And then the parents of the families next to that school district were like posting on Facebook and being like, why isn't my district giving free lunch? And why aren't they doing that? And why won't you? And so there was some kind of social political pressure to sign up for CEP this fall. If you find that is an option that you do want to entertain, they do have like a tool on the ISB site where you can put in all your numbers and see if it's the right thing for you. I have had school districts report in these trainings that they were, it was kind of a wash either way, and they decided to go with CEP just solely because of the community pressure. But know that that might be the case for you. There is a different indicator in the system for CEP. So if you're one of the districts who's newly signed up for it, I'll show you how to mark your CEP when we get into the system. We also, hopefully this is not brand new to you, but we do have the option of the Illinois State Consortium for Internet. It is managed by the Department of Innovation and Technology, and it, in essence, gives you internet access through our state network, the Illinois Century Network. I encourage you to look at it as an option. So you will fill out the letter of agency and the circuit information for the consortium, and that will allow them to bid out on your behalf. So just like we're filing a 470 today, they filed a 470 a couple of months ago with all of the school districts listed on it that might want internet access through them. They will bid out on your behalf, include your school district in their bidding process, and then they will come back to you in January or February and say, this is the provider that we have chosen for you. The state network will use and choose providers that are the cheapest for them, period. That's the only thing that they're looking at, is the most cost-effective bid that they've received for your district, and that is how they're choosing their winners. On your end, you will be able to do a rubric for your providers, and you may take into account previous things like previous experience with the vendor. You can give more points to a current provider than you have a new provider, and things like that, to kind of weigh the scales a little bit in your review. We have had school districts that have bid out for this consortium and have been thrilled with the results. And they have said, yes, please and thank you, sign me up for the consortium. If you choose to take their option and use their internet and their transport, they will then file the 471 for you for category 1. So they will do the filing of ERate for you, and to entice you to join, they will pay your non-discounted share. So in essence, this is free internet for your school district. That's kind of hard to turn down in a lot of circumstances, but some districts are reporting and saying, I get my internet and my phones together bundled from the same provider, and they didn't choose that provider. I found if I go with the state network, I'm going to have an increase on my phone fees, and it doesn't outweigh the cost. Or I've not had great experience with the provider that they've chosen in the past, and that just makes me nervous, and I don't want to do that. And the choice really is up to you. There are a lot of very valid reasons that school districts decide not to do the state network and to go ahead and do their own. They will bid out for you for direct connection to your building, and Midwest Central is a great example. They can bid out the connection from Midwest Central main building connection back to the ICN and between those buildings. And you may choose, hey, I don't want to go with the between buildings. I want to be in control of that and choose that provider, but I want to go ahead and accept that main connection back to them, or vice versa. So it's totally up to you. You can pick and choose what you want. I ask if you are using the Illinois Century Network, or you have signed up for them and they're bidding out for you in this first year, that you also file a 470 with us today to ask for internet access, because the chance always exists that they will get a bid that either you are not happy with, or that they won't get a bid at all for your district. And I want you to have a plan B. And be able to say, okay, I'm still covered. You maybe didn't get any bids for me, but I did, and I'm going to sign a contract here to cover next year. You might have missed the opportunity, so it's something that you would like to do, but they've already bid out this year, and your service ends June 30th of 2023. So we need to cover a year before they bid out for you the following year, and you entertain that option. In addition, there have been some school districts that it has not been up and going when they need it. So if your contract ends 6/30 of 2023, you're applying for the consortium, they're going to bid for you, and that really is your intention. Like, you want to move forward with that. There may be an install period, and it may take a few months for them to get the connectivity to you. And if it's not up and live by July 1st, I want you to file a 470 and 471 to cover month-to-month service in case there's a delay. Meaning, if they don't get that up and going for you until October 1st for some reason, I don't know, maybe we're in the terms of having pandemics in our world right now, you might be able to file your internet discount through ERate on your current service until that's up and running. Typically, I get some questions or comments about the state network at this time. So does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments that you want to share with the rest of the group? Is anybody moving to the state network, and really today you want me to do an example of a plan B option for you? Expand my little box so I can see all of you. So I have Jane, do you have a question? If so, you're muted. If not, and you're just saying yes.
There.
Okay, there you go.
We are moving to the network. So I'm going to go ahead and file the 470, and hopefully we'll see who they give us. was
And
told.
and again, many school districts have been thrilled with their transition. So I'm not giving it a negative review or anything here. I just want to
Right.
make sure that you're covered in case there's a delay, so that you can cover your month-to-month service. We did have just a handful of districts that did not do that last year. And so if there was a delay in getting their service, they had to pay the whole bill. And I just hate that. I
Yeah,
want you
I'm planning to move forward with the 470, and then hopefully January we'll see who they give us, so.
And there's a little less, like if you find that they give you the same provider that you currently have, and both the network and your provider say there's not going to be a delay at all, it's in essence just moving a wire from our box to their box in the data server, that's fine. If that's what they tell you and you feel confident with that. I just I always hate to see when somebody has to pay out of pocket for something that they could have gotten a discount on. So thank you for joining us today to look at that. Some of you may already be in the state network, and that's great. That's fine. We will do examples today for the 470 for category 1 as well as category 2. So if you're here to file a 470 for category 2, that's great. If your contract is still in the middle of your contract and you are not ending on June 30th of 2023, but you have 2024, 2025, you really do not need to file a category 1 470 each year. You can just cite the contract from the first year. So we've got everybody in kind of different situations this year. If you have any more questions or comments about the network, please do reach out to me, or there are 3 individuals tagged with supporting school districts and onboarding them. In the southern part of the state, that is Marla Harp. In the middle part of the state, central Illinois, that is Terry Sullivan. His email might say Terrence, but it's Terry Sullivan. And in the northern part of the state, it is Lee Steinover. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So those 3 individuals can help you in your transition and answer your questions over to the state network. They are all retired tech directors from across the state that they are contracting with to help communicate with school districts and get them onboarded. So I'm happy to connect you with those. If you need emails to Lee, Terry, or Marla, please let me know. And then I think lastly in our updates, we have the option of the state match. So we do have an Illinois state matching grant in play in the state of Illinois. What that means is if you get a bid back for ERate that requires a build to your district, so you have a general provider that's charging you $1,000 a month for your internet, but a brand new provider comes and gives you a bid this year and says, we'll charge you $200 a month for your internet. But it's going to take $100,000 to get to your district. If you get a bid like that and you weigh the options and you calculate out the cost and you determine that that is going to be a cost savings for you and that would be the bid that you want to go with, that is totally okay. You can choose to do so and leverage the Illinois State Matching Grant. So for those builds, you would get your E-rate support at your normal discount level. You actually get a little bit of a boost for leveraging the program. And then the state matching grant in Illinois will cover the remaining cost. So you can get that, in my example, that entire $100,000 build paid for. And then in essence, your bill will go from $1,000 a month to $200 a month if you're willing to make that change. It is some extra hoops to jump through, one of which is filling out a grant application in IWAS. I can help you through that process either way. If you find that you do have a bid that you'd like to move forward with that has a build, do reach out to me and I can help add you to my list, and you get like special emails and check-ins from me to make sure that everything is moving smoothly with those builds and that we can get that remaining money. If you are interested in owning your own fiber within your district, so many school districts are now looking at the cost savings that they would have if they own fiber between their buildings and manage those networks themselves. That is an option in E-rate. So that is something that is eligible. You do have to jump through some extra hoops and bid out a certain way and then review a certain way. Again, I can help you through that process if you want to do a self-provisioned or even a dark fiber lease project. Those are eligible through the program, but many times those do cost a special construction charge, and we can leverage the state match for that. The example that I give is here in Robinson. They were paying roughly $35,000 a year for their internet when you added up all the monthly fees. They got a bid that was special construction that said, hey, It's going to cost $120,000, but we could build between your buildings and you could own it. And your monthly charge between your buildings will be $0. They're also on the state network and one of their anchor institutions at the high school. So they went from spending $35,000 a year on ERate to spending just $300 a month on maintenance fees to make sure if there were any damages to the lines that those can be repaired. So kind of like a sort of insurance package. But that was a significant cost savings for that district. And when they do testing each spring, they can ramp up and say, hey, we're going to do testing at our one building this year. We're going to, turn up the internet at that building and make sure we don't have any hiccups in the testing. They can do that for each testing building that they're doing and flow that internet through from the high school to the middle school and the grade schools as need be. So they've been very happy with it. Please know if you do own your own connections between your buildings, you're responsible for them. Hence the $300 maintenance package that Robinson pays for. But you can also the head end products that light fiber at each of those buildings, those are eligible for the ERate program as well. Actually, that's the only equipment that is eligible in category 1. So it doesn't even come out of your category 2 budget. It is managing the network and managing your internet into the buildings. So that is a category 1 expense. So if you do have a dark fiber connection or a self-provisioned connection already, replacing that equipment is eligible in the program as well. So just an option for you. There was $17 million in the program when it was put into place. That was an estimate that we would need to connect all school buildings in the state of Illinois. And so there is $10 million left and available in the fund right now. Chicago Public Schools does have a current application where they're working with it. And so they've already gotten their share, I guess we should say it that way. So plenty of money in the fund. If you find yourself in that situation, do reach out to me and we will help you navigate that system. And then last but not least, there has been a movement to different acronyms for tracking your federal funds. So many of you are familiar with the terms GATA, SAMS, and DUNS numbers in the past. There's a new term, and it is UEI. And so some of these other systems, the SAMS numbers and the DUNS numbers do expire every so often. So they're X number of years. We are moving to the UEI number, the unique something identifier. Entity identifier or something like that. It will not expire, but you do have to have an active SAMS and DUNS number in order to apply for UEI. And I'm just giving you a heads up on this now. You may be hearing this from other federal funding sources as well. I did ask and reach out to sam.gov and ask them if they could give me, some training slides that I could add to our training today to walk you through the process. And they said, we don't really work like that. People need to deal with us directly. So that's fine. I did link for you the SAMS.gov number here as well as the phone number. I'm told that it is much easier to renew your number before it expires than to get it reactivated. So do tag your bookkeeper, talk to somebody there at your district, find out what your SAMS and DUNS numbers are and when they expire and what you need to do at your district level to move to that UEI so that you have that in place. I do expect that they will start requiring the UEI in the future. During invoicing periods, but they're not probably going to push it on you until it's time for you to renew. So, but there's something to be thinking about. Questions or comments about any of the updates that I've given before we get into the system today? All right, not hearing or seeing any. We're going to first update our student counts in the system. So I'm going to ask you to log into the portal now, and we're going to do a demo and log in. I'll show you where to update those student counts, but it is under the My Entities in the portal, and we're going to do it for each building within your district. And then I'm going to show you how to do it or how to update your district information if necessary. I will tell you, there is a special button that you can click to update your category 2 budget. The category 2 budgets are locked in right now. So if you have student counts already in the system and you've been spending money, again, Midwest Central is a good example of that because they've been half spent. That budget amount is locked into the system. If you calculate today and you find that your student counts have lowered, do not worry. They're not adjusting your budget. Your budget's locked in for the 5 years. However, if you calculate today and you find that you have 50 more students, you could have more money. That's 50 times 167. You can click the button and ask them to update it for you. They are only going to update your budget if you click that button, and I'll show you where that is on the district page. So I'm going to start the demo. I'm going to log in with everybody to usac.org. If you have it bookmarked, you might have it bookmarked as portal.usac.org. But if you go to the usac.org site, the sign in button is right up here by the search in the upper right. It's a blue button. So we're going to click sign in and sign into the portal. This says you're going to sign into the system. If it's your first time logging in, please read this information carefully. It basically says you're logging in with your email and password and verifying it. It is in essence your signature. Right? If you updated your student counts last week, Doug, you don't have to do it again with us today, but we have a couple at least that need to update that. So I'm going to show everybody how to do that. This is where I want to say a big thank you to Hudsonville. I worked with Hudsonville 2 sessions ago as a demo, and they actually agreed to give me an email address and their system so that I could log in as them and use them as an example. I find that the active district examples are a lot easier to follow along with than the test site that we have to use. So thank you to Hudsonville for allowing me to log in as them. We don't, of course, submit anything on their behalf. You're gonna put in your email and password, check the box, and click sign in. It's possible right now that it's triggering you to update your password. It does that every so many days. So if you need to update your password, you're gonna put in your existing and then your new password 2 times. Unfortunately, you cannot use a previous password. I laugh because a superintendent that I worked with in Northwestern Illinois used to type in, "I hate ERate 1. I hate ERate 2 with an exclamation mark." I think he's up to I hate ERate 13 this year. If yours just has an email and not a text message, that's totally okay. I signed up for the text messages because that's a lot easier for me. And on this page, it does list your cell phone number, last 4 digits. Please make sure that's correct or know which one you're checking, and click send passcode. So you're waiting to get to a page that has this green check mark on it. So now at this point, you're going to check your phone, check your email, and see what that passcode is. And I have found sometimes people get 2 quick emails or 2 quick texts. So give it just a second and make sure you're looking at the most recent of those. Somebody told me yesterday they find when they hit enter instead of clicking, when you just hit enter on your keyboard, that's when you get the 2 texts. But if they actually physically click, that doesn't happen. I don't know that that's true for everyone, just sharing what they shared with me. Not true. So as you're logging in, you should then come to this main dashboard page. You may see just 2 boxes here, the EPC and ECF logins, but you may have a third that is the invoicing login. If you feel like you should have access to the bare invoicing and you do not, make a little note to reach out to me, and we will go ahead and file a customer service request to get access to the bare. And this login, I just have access to the top 2. We're going to go into the EPC, the Epic portal today. And as I said, the first thing that we are going to do is update our student counts. So Doug is going to get another cup of coffee while the rest of us do that. I'm going to scroll down on the main landing page to the My Entities. If by chance you are logged into a different page and you see something like this, you're going to go to Reports from the blue bar at the top and My Applicant landing page to get to the landing page. And then we're going to scroll down to my entities. And again, this district has a district with buildings underneath it. Hopefully you're seeing that as well. We do have a handful of districts that only have one entity as they're logged in. That is, again, only a handful of districts in the state. That's okay if that's you, but your screens may look a little bit different than mine. Oh, Bobette, we were in a loop last year, stuck in a loop last year with your login as well. It is probably not something that you're doing. I think last year we had to call the 1-800 number and report the glitch. So I'm not sure why it does that when you have to update your password. I'm sorry. Maybe go ahead and call the 800 number. Let me throw it on the screen for everyone real quick and see if it's something that they can resolve on their end for you and then maybe you can join in with us by the time we get to the, yeah, okay, we can watch the video too. Sorry. We usually have one that gets stuck somewhere. It's your lucky day. Buy a lottery ticket. Maybe that'll balance out. Okay, so I'm going to click on Hudsonville Grade School. Clicking on the link in the My Entities opens the status page. Switching browsers helped Noah on it. You might even, if you're in Chrome, you might like try an incognito mode and that might do something special. So here's, maybe it's like what it's remembering for you in the background. Here on the main status page for Hudsonville, I am going to click Manage Organization in the upper right. So that is going to then open up the page for you. Again, the opening of this page and editing it is a limited time. It will lock down the day before they open the 471. They try to open a 471 on a Monday and then lock this down on the Friday previous. So we'll see how that works out when they release the window. But do know they will lock it down before they open the 471. So if you have something that's spelled wrong, or if you need to update a physical address to a 911 address or something like that, you are welcome to do so. But I'm going to scroll all the way down here to the school information section. And in that school information section, you'll see the full-time number of students here on the left and the total eligible for free and reduced on the right. So if I find that the school district now has 210 students instead of 207 at this building, I can say that. And the total number of students eligible might be 105. So you can make your changes. You are getting these numbers, hopefully from a report that is an ISB report instead of just your student management system. And the reason that I say that is if you use the fall housing report, I think it's called the fall enrollment report that was due November 1st, that is super easy for Eric Grocky to generate a report that matches your totals if and when you're asked for validation. He does put together a list each year using those totals and information from the nutrition program. They actually build it for him and release it in January or February so that he can give that to USAC and they can maybe not harass you for third-party verification, but just look at that list. We call that the validation report. So he does do that each year and provide that to ISB online or to USAC online so that they can validate. But we do every year get several requests that say, hey, I need third-party verification. And it's really super easy for him to generate a report if you're using a SIS report to do that. If you did not use a date, if you're looking at a report that was maybe, like December 1st or something, just record that date. So if you're asked for validation, he can generate that report on that day and give you the totals. Some of our alternative safe school programs do that. Because they actually have higher totals now in December than they would at the first of the year. If you are CEP, there is a button for that. So you're going to click on that CEP button and then notice over on the right-hand side, you can enter your CEP percentage from your form. I'm told that's in IWAs and in WINS. There's a report and you'll have a percentage for each building. So you can enter that building here. And then the base year is the year you signed up. So if you're one of our new school districts that signed up this fall, you can use the 2022 as your figure there. If you are not CEP, you're going to come back here and say no on the CEP. So don't check that. There's also an alternative discount method. I don't see any private schools with us today, but sometimes they don't participate in the free and reduced lunch program. And instead they use a survey method, and they survey out to their students to find out their poverty levels, and that is allowed in the program. So you can use your alternative discount method. While I'm here, they do have a sibling match. So if you are a unit district, a K-12 district, and you're finding that your high school students don't turn in the forms, but the grade school do, you could maybe bump up your figures a little bit if you kind of take a look at those addresses and say, you know, Sam has an older brother that's at the high school, and if Sam's eligible for free and reduced lunch, so is his older brother, and you can get a few more counts that way if it benefits you. Maybe if you're right in the middle of a discount level, it won't matter. But if you're right at the edge of that 80 to 90, you update your totals today and you find out you're unfortunately losing 10%. That's a good way to kind of pump up your scores a little and use that alternative method, and then be able to say to them, check my validation, and I'll show you my information for that. Once you've updated those student counts, you're going to go down here to the bottom. And you're also going to update your total number of students for your category 2 page here. Again, if you have less, don't worry about it. You can update it or not. But definitely for those of you that have more, go ahead and click that update. And then you're going to click submit, and it's going to give you a screen that says, what do you want to call this update? And you can just put updated totals, and then that will save. So I'm going to cancel because I don't want to mess with the figures for Hudsonville. It will take you back to the status page, and then you're going to click on reports from the blue bar, landing page, and you're going to go down and do your next building. So I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes to update each of their buildings. And I'm going to go get a cup of coffee in the next room real quick. So give me a minute for that. All right, hopefully that was enough time to update each of your individual school buildings. Again, if you do not have your totals with you today, you do have a couple more weeks to get this updated. And you can do that before the 471 opens. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, just kind of looking to see if anybody needs to unmute and say, hey, something looks weird on my screen. Okay, now I'm going to click on the district entity to show you guys a couple of things there. So when I click on the district name, if you scroll down right here to the middle, you'll see the account administrator name. So please do validate that account administrator. It may be you, it may be a superintendent, it may be a former superintendent, but that is who is the administrator on record. If that is you, you will likely see up here in these options on the right, something that says manage organization, but also create users. So if that is a person that is no longer at your district, in order to get that changed, you do have to call USAC and tell them to remove that person and make this new person the administrator of record. Only that administrator of record is able to log in and change and add and remove users. So you're really going to have to change it to you or to a current superintendent who can log in and change those users. So please do check that while you're here. In addition to that, we're going to click on down or scroll on down here, and you'll see the category 2 budget information is listed here. And the numbers from the bottom of each of those pages that you filled out are ported over to this section. So again, if you have more numbers here, higher number than what you had before, you're interested in updating that budget and taking advantage of that increase in funds, you're going to click right here, Request Replacement Cycle. If you do not see a request replacement cycle, it is probably because your numbers stayed the same and have not been updated. So again, if you have fewer people, do not click that button. I only want you to click the button if you have more people and it would give you more money. When you click that button, it says, are you sure this is going to request a replacement budget and have us adjust your numbers? Are you sure you want to do that? And so know that you'll have to say yes to that if that's what you want to do. Again, if you want to update something on this page, you can click Manage Organization. And then you can go down here and change the physical address, etc., for your district office, main mailing address, etc. So for this particular district, we have a total count of 305. But when they figure the budget, they get 207 times 167 as their budget. And then this one down here with the 98 has less than 150 students. So they get 25,000 for that. So it's 25,000 plus the 207 times 167. 176. I can't remember. I might be a little dyslexic there. So I'm going to click cancel on my updates. But no, you can update that district information as well. I'm going to go to reports and landing page and then just give you a couple of different pointers on our 470. So again, I know I've said it several times, but the 470 is the wish list today. Nothing that you put here is set in stone. We've seen some errors and some people getting denied funding for errors on the 470 in the last couple of years. So I'm going to point out a couple of hurdles that I'm seeing there. Please know it is totally okay for you to have a vendor that you work with as your tech director provide for you a wish list of what you might need to update this next year and use that as your guide. Do not upload a list that you received from a provider with their name on it. That makes that provider ineligible to bid on your requests. So you may use it as a guide. You may ask, what do you think I need? And you can use their list to move forward with. But please do not indicate that provider in any way on your form, or else they may not bid on your form. In addition to that, you must be open to all vendors. So obviously the provider that you work with is hoping that you will choose them as their winning bid, and you can take prior experience with vendor into account in your rubric. But you must welcome and accept bids from all providers, and you will probably get them from other providers as well. So please know you will accept bids from all providers and take a look at what those costs are for those items. If you have a make and model number, that is fantastic. Let's put that in there, because many of your providers can get you all kinds of equipment, and they really do want to know what brand and model you're looking at so they can get you the right and most appropriate bid. However, if you put in for Aruba firewall and somebody decides the Fortinet firewall is just as good as the Aruba, they might give you a bid on the Fortinet firewall. You must accept that bid. So you have to accept the bid, and you can give some points in your rubric for those who gave you what you asked for versus those that are new. And we can talk about that in bid evaluation when we get to our 471 workshop. But know that you must accept all bids and like items. In the chart that it will create in your form, it will say or equivalent. That is important. It is important that we include the or equivalent in our narrative as well. So if you have a tech person who has given you a list of things to put in your narrative of what you need, or has given you a rubric to attach with more detail, please make sure it is noted in that document or in the narrative or equivalent after each product number, because you are to be open-minded and accept whatever you get. This is an open bidding process. Again, maintenance is work performed on something. So if you need new batteries for your battery backup systems, that would be called internal connections. If you need maintenance or something to fix something, or a software license that is patches and upgrades, that is maintenance. But anything that if it's a paperweight, unless it has the software, that would be included as internal connections. I would encourage you for any products that you need to file it as internal connections and click the magic box to also put in a maintenance request, with the exception of like a rack, because you're not going to need software for a rack. But for anything else that might have software, I would put both in just to cover all of our options moving forward. And know, again, if you apply for maintenance, what they're expecting to see on the back end for invoicing, and you'll get it approved, right? They'll go through and they'll say, oh, you want maintenance on that? That's great. But if the invoice on the back end comes back and shows that you purchased a product, instead of X number of hours fixing these switches, if it's an actual switch or a new module, etc., they're not going to pay for those products. They're only going to pay for the service hours. Again, we really want anything that is in your RFP to also have a drop-down. So you can't just say, I'm going to get switches in your drop-down menu, and then also say in your narrative, and I want wireless access points. That's not okay. It has to be wireless access points up above to match your narrative. And again, we're going to use that magic button for maintenance. If you have self-provisioned or dark fiber, or you're asking for self-provisioned or dark fiber, you want to own those network pieces yourself in category 1, you must also bid out lit fiber. So you must also say, I'm interested in lit fiber as an option, because you have to demonstrate and show that owning it yourself would be cheaper over time than paying a provider for traditional services. So lit fiber service combined with those. And again, I'm going to do an example today that is going to show that category 1 and category 2 are on the same. You can do yours on the same if you want to do that, or you can do separate ones. Most people do at least separate category 1 and category 2, but it is not required. The first few pages are exactly the same, and the last few pages are exactly the same on category 1 and category 2. The only difference is the chart. So you're welcome to put it all on one form if that's simplest for you, but you're also welcome to break it out. The only one I am pretty adamant you should break it out is if you are asking for self-provisioned or dark fiber. It takes a little longer to review those in the process. So I encourage you to kind of break that out as a separate bid, just to kind of keep that as a separate process and not hold up all the rest of your applications. You may put in disqualifications or deadlines, and I'll show you how to do that. You may put in those elements in your narrative, and some of those are a pretty good idea if you're interested. And then please know, if you ask for like 15 wireless access points, and then you have a provider come and say to you, oh, wow, 15's not going to cut it here. You really need 25. And you want to change that, and you want to accept the bid for 25, you're going to have to let everybody who's bidding know that you really do want 25, and then restart that 28-day clock. So somehow memorialize that change and memorialize the fact that you're letting everyone know that you wanted 25. If it was me, I would file a new 470 and say, we actually want 25 wireless access points, not 15. The reason that we do that is because some of the providers will give you a bid on the 15 and what that costs. But if you bought 10 more, that might be a reduced rate. And you really are supposed to provide an open opportunity for everyone and that have apples to apples comparison. So again, going to go back into our portal to the main page. And we're going to click on FCC Form 470 from the upper right-hand window. Options. The first thing that you are going to do is name your form. I'm doing a delete me so I don't forget to delete it and not process it. Most people do some sort of a combination of the district name, 470, and FY 23-24. Again, that tells me what school year we are applying for. And then on my example, I'm going to do Cat 1 and Cat 2. But I've seen other people say switches or Cat 2 switches and wireless or internet or whatever. Again, I'm going to do my example on the same one, but you're welcome to do 2 different examples or 2 different forms if you want. I'm going to click save and continue. And on this next page, you just validate that this is you. It is Hudsonville School District, and I'm going to click save and continue one more time. So that was naming it, save, continue, save, continue. This next page shows your consultant information. Some of you do use consultants for category 1, but then you file your category 2 or vice versa. You should see that consultant information here. If you have a consultant listed and are no longer using that consultant, please drop an email to me and I'll give you the steps for how to remove that consultant from the system. I encourage you to leave that consultant on the system for at least a year because your contract with them probably requires them to close out a year. So we want to make sure that we've collected all your money and gotten all the services from them from the previous year before you kick them out of the system. Otherwise, you'll be responsible for doing the invoicing, et cetera, which you can do, but know that. If you are using a consultant, I work with consultants as well. So I have zero problem with you using a consultant. Please do give them my name or number if there's something interesting that you want me to talk to them about, or if they have questions, I'm happy to help. Are you the main contact person? Congrats, you're here. You probably are. If you are not, or if you are transitioning this year and you have another person sitting with you today who will be responsible for your E-rate, you are welcome to add them to the system and say no here, and then select somebody different from the system. Please, if you are leaving or retiring at the end of the year, please put my business card or a Post-it note with my name and contact somewhere so your replacement knows where to find me. And it would be great if you would give them access to your login and password for the portal when you leave, if you have not set them up as a new user, because likely we'll have to log in as you in order to set them up in the system. Clicking save and continue will take us to the category of service page. So you're going to choose which category or categories you're applying for. I'm going to make both of mine blue. So category 1 and category 2. Choose your category. And the next page, we'll click save and continue. And it says, do you have an RFP? If you have an RFP, you will say yes. And you can click and upload it to the system. If you do not have an RFP, that is okay. Many people do not use an RFP. They just put in the wish list on the next page and use the narrative. Any additional information is considered an RFP. So if you're going to rewire your grade school and you want to attach a map of the grade school and where you want all the drops to be, that would be considered an RFP. It doesn't have to be a legal, passed by your school board RFP for this situation. I'm going to put in my fake contract here because I find that sometimes we need to note an RFP on the next page, and I just want to have that option to do that. Again, if you don't have an RFP, put no, and we're going to click save and continue. And then it's going to ask me when I upload an RFP, and I can do more than one, is this RFP for category 1 or category 2? Again, I'm going to check both boxes just so that I can use it as a demo on the next page. So now we are at our category 1 chart page. So you have above the part that's going to make the chart for you with this blue button that says add new service request and a narrative below. So I'm going to click on add new service request, and for category 1, I will have my choose your own adventure form. The first option is I seek bids for internet, or I want network equipment. Again, the network equipment eligible for category 1 is just those head end lighting equipments for those of you who have self-provisioned or dark fiber. Otherwise, the rest of us are all going to click on that I seek bids for internet access. Your next options say, I seek bids for any kind of internet access bundled or separate. I seek bids for just internet access. That would be if you got the Illinois Century Network and there's a charge to you, that would be there. For those of you in my I-39, I-80 corridor, so you're in the LaSalle, Peru area, Many of you currently have contracts that have a bid for internet access from someone like an IUNet, and then a bid for transport, which is from iFiber. So if you find yourself in that situation and you have two separate bids right now, you are going to want to make sure you do the bundled, because that would be a better option, one bill for all. But then we might want to come back in and do another example for just transport and just internet, so that you give all of your options and can cover your current service. Lastly, the last one says, I seek to build my own network. And again, if that's something you're interested in, reach out to me and we'll do a hands-on example one-to-one in a Zoom meeting. So I'm going to choose the CHOP option, which is all of my options. I seek bundled and individual service from any kind of provider. And then lastly, it says, I seek bids for internet access and transmission services, either bundled or separate. Or I seek plans for wireless adapters or air cards, mobile devices. Again, that is eligible if it is the most cost-effective option for your district. You can choose it there. We're going to go with the top one here. And this is the most general of our options that we're choosing. So internet access, any kind of medium, and bundled or transport. Technically, if you file this, this will cover all of your options for you. However, if you have transport and internet access as separate, I'm going to show you on my next example how to add that for anybody who needs to know. So I want just one connection here. So it happens to be that Hudsonville has both buildings on the same campus. The connection comes into the high school, and they don't need a separate connection for the grade school because they are linked together by fiber that the district owns inside those two buildings. It's literally just like a passageway from one building to the next. If you find yourself in that situation, you would just want one line. Now, if your two buildings or three buildings are across the town from each other, you're going to want to take into account those connections as well. So you'll add that in category 1 here in your quantity. And then again, how many entities are served? And in this case, I have 2 buildings. Please take into account your other entities that are non-instructional facilities as well. So you may have on your list your district, and then underneath that, your 3 school buildings and your bus barn, or your district office. If you're asking for connectivity for those entities, add those into your count as well. The button here says, are you seeking installation, activation, and initial configuration? So if you are seeking those, you're going to say yes here. If you say no, that's going to might limit the bids that you get. So a new provider might look in here and say, oh, well, there's going to be a installation fee and they're not going to want that, so I'm not going to give them a bid. Or they'll go ahead and give you a bid. But if you don't check that button, you can't get that activation or initial configuration covered. So I like to say it's good to go ahead and click yes there in case there's a fee, you can cover it. Over here under minimum capacity, that's going to be whatever you currently have. So Hudsonville School District actually has 250 megabits, but that's not an option. So we're going to go down and we're going to choose 200. And then I'm going to encourage everyone that has less than the 200 meg, or less than a gigabit, to choose the gigabit or 1000 megabits as an option. It might be overkill. It might not be what you need, but I am finding a lot of providers have really competitive pricing at that 1 gigabit amount. That is also, it's a point where they have to update their equipment. So they're trying to update their network across the state, and they're putting in 1 gigabit equipment. So they might entice you and give you a better price on that 1 gigabit than what you would receive otherwise. You don't have to choose it. It's fine. You can still choose your 200 or your 300, etc. But it does give you a nice range to be able to use a comparison. It's also sets you up so if you're signing a multiple year contract, if you find that you need more internet next year or the year after, you would be able to update and say, next year I'm going to get 300, right? That's what you sign a contract for next year. But 2 years from now, you might want to upgrade to 500, and that will allow you to do that without filing a new 470. And again, if you do have an RFP and you marked it, you can indicate here, this is my RFP does take into account here, or it does not. And that just tells the provider to go out and look at that narrative. I'm going to click Save Request. And you'll see here that it put it in my chart. So I have internet access and data transmission. Several of you, again, I said, have just transport between your buildings, or you're interested in transport maybe back to the Illinois Century Network, where you would pick that transport line and that provider, but it would be back to them. So you can say, I seek internet bids. And on this one, you could go down to our third option that says, I seek to purchase transmission service only. And that's transmission service without internet access. So again, you may have a contract between your buildings that is just transport at a better rate than you would get bundled service. This gives you that option for that. Again, for my I-39, I-80 corridor people, you're going to want to choose transport only, and then choose the second one as another login as internet access only to make sure you've covered all your bases. Again, I'm going to have exactly the same as I had on the other one. There are two entities with one line. Yes, I want the installation, and I'm going to go back to my minimum amount of what I have now and my maximum amount of what I might grow to. And I'm going to click on Save Request, and that added it to my chart. Don't see any questions pertaining to our form in the chat. I'm going to pause and say, does anybody have any questions so far? I'm going to work on the narrative down here in a little bit. I'm going to say seeking bids for internet access for two buildings on one campus. So that's very clear to the providers who are bidding why I asked for one line instead of two. You may say in your narrative, seeking bids for internet access for two buildings on one campus and one across town. You can enter the addresses if you need to. If you are by chance applying for a separate district office or bus barn, please make sure that you've said that for two school buildings and a bus barn, or two buildings and a district office at different locations or something like that. So what are you seeking there in the first one? Said interested in bids at 200, 300, I'm going to do MB, megabit, 300 MB, and 1 gigabit bandwidth levels. If you are someone that wants a bid that is the up and down is going to be the same, which I can't remember the term off the top of my head. It's not reciprocal. It's whatever that term is for having bandwidth that the up and the down are the same. You could say extra points will be given for bids that verify that. Or I've seen some people, I'll do that other example in a second. So you can put a disclaimer in here if you need that. If it's important to you that you want 1 gigabit service between your buildings, but at least 200 to the world, you could say asynchronous. Thank you, Doug Sawyer. So you could say preference will be given to asynchronous bids. So you can say, hey, I don't want your 200 up or your 200 down and your 20 up. I want it to be 200 both ways, etc. So you could add your preferences there. In addition to that, I'm going to say bids should be given for month to month. And this is a great example for those of you hoping possibly to transfer to the Illinois Century Network. Month to month, 12-month, and 36-month contract options. So for the provider, I'm looking at this and I can say, look, they want two buildings on one campus. I want to start at 200. So I'm going to give them the pricing at 2, 3, and 1. And they may give you 5 and 750 as well. But 2, 3, and 1 are required. And they want to know what it's going to cost at 12 months and 36 months, as well as a month-to-month non-contract option. So I know exactly what I want to give someone. And then I can say points will be given to bidders that will certify to accept 474 SPI invoicing. So if you know that that's what you prefer, you know that you prefer to pay your 10, 20, 30% and have them bill USAC, you can say points will be given to bidders that will certify for that SPI invoicing. That tells them right up front, I'm interested in SPI invoicing. And if you'll give that to me and you say so in your bid, I'll give you some more points. And then you're going to want to make sure to include that in your rubric. Other people have said things like only bids sent to ERate at Hudsonville Tigers.org will be accepted. In other words, you might have my regular email on here, but if you want me to evaluate the bid, it needs to go to this separate email address. I'm only accepting those bids. Please know if you put disclaimers like that, like only, you must stick to it. So if you get a bid from your current provider to your current email address and they don't send it to ERate at Hudsonville Tigers, it is not a valid bid. Now, could you say in reply when you get it in your email, hey, we're only accepting bids to ERate at Hudsonville Tigers? Yes. But know that if you get any bids to your regular email, you don't have to consider them if you've made that a disclaimer or a disqualification point here. If that transport addition that was up here was back to the Illinois Century Network, you could say transport option R is for connectivity connection back to Illinois Century Network. Again, that's just an extra option. If you're interested in and worried about who they might choose as your provider, this way you could get a transport connection back to the Illinois Century Network from high school. And that would allow you to choose the provider that you want if they pick one for you that you don't like. So if you're specific and want to have some control over that, you can do that from here. Please note, if you choose to go with your bid, you'll be responsible for the non-discounted share, but then you can still get the internet access from the state with their built-in security options and services. So that's a plan C. Plan A is your own options and contracts. Plan B is the Illinois Century Network and what they get for you. And plan C would be a transport option back to them. So you have the right to do that. If you're applying for transport, you could say transport bid is for connection between buildings or something like that. So you can kind of explain what you want, how you're going to get internet if you've just applied for transport. Down here at the bottom is not something that most of us use. I'm going to click on yes just to show it to you. It's an option for a payment plan. It's usually only typically used by our vocational, special ed and alternative safe school people or private schools, I guess. If you are interested in getting a bid and you're building something and you want to have the option of breaking down those payments over 4 years monthly, you can spell that out here. So you can say to them right up the front, if there's a build to get it to me, I'm still interested in those. I want to pay that over 4 months or 4 years at 12 months. So you can say that there. For the mass majority of you that are public schools, I want you to say no there, because if you get a build out in your bid, we're going to leverage the state matching grant for that. Questions or comments about the narrative, about your choices and your pull downs? Anybody worried about your connection and what it looks like and whether or not it's covered here? Quiet group today, you guys. Quiet group. Feel like I'm talking to myself. I do have some videos of people shaking their heads like, we're good, Mindy. Okay, we're going to move here to the category 2 options now. So if you were on pause and waiting for category 2, now's the time to pay attention. If you are moving forward with your category 1, The next couple of pages are going to be your certifications and the prep of your form. So if you're doing your category 1, go ahead and push pause on that. Go back up to reports and landing page, start a new 470, do those first few pages, and then catch up to us in category 2. Again, category 2 looks exactly the same. There's an add new service request button at the top and a narrative below. I'm going to click on add new service request. And like I talked about, there are 3 subcategories for category 2. I personally am not a fan of the subcategories. I don't know what the point is. They've already given you a budget, just let you spend your money. That is the speech that I give when anybody from the FCC will listen to me. But in this case, we are going to use the top one for equipment, the second one for maintenance or licenses that are maintenance, and the bottom one for management of a network. If there is something in particular that you would like to see, please go off of mute or post in the chat what you would like to see an example of. Otherwise, I will just give a couple of examples and show you how it works. So I'm going to choose equipment, and then it says function. What kind of equipment do you want? So for my first example, I am going to do wireless access points, but you can choose whatever it is that you need from the list. Saying I want wireless access points and I want 15 of them. And this district uses Ubiquity. Your district may use Cisco, or it may use Aruba. So you're going to want to choose the product that you typically use. Notice it says or equivalent. So again, they're going to give you some prices, could give you some prices on items that are equivalent to that Ubiquity. Are you seeking installation, activation, and configuration? So for these wireless access points, do you want someone to come and install it? In this case, we're going to say no. We have a district tech who's going to install that equipment. And then if this is in your contract or your bid, you're going to select that fake contract option to say, yes, it is in, the details are in the attached document. Then down here underneath, there is this magic square that says, would you also like to have internal connections? I'm going to click yes on this, because then it will say, if there's by chance support or a license that is considered bonus features or supporting features, I want to have that option as well. And it does have a number of entities served, which is just your number of buildings. I'm going to unselect up here because that's not my support, but I might have a support contract that I'm clicking that fake document on. Again, I may say no on both of these fake documents. When I click save request, it's going to put in my chart the wireless access points and then support for those wireless access points. So I both listed in my chart. It is normal to not have an entity on the top one that's internal connections, but have an entity on the support for. And again, I checked one of those boxes and not the other, so it does indicate my fake contract here. Then in my narrative, I'm going to come down and say seeking bids for 15 Ubiquity X300s. I'm going to make that up. X300 access points or equivalent. Actually, I'm going to seek bids for 10 Ubiquity X300s access points or equivalent and 5 Ubiquity UX800s or equivalent. So what that tells my provider is I want 15 access points. 10 of them are my inside the building access points and 5 are outside the building outdoor access points that will provide coverage for my parking lots and athletic facilities. Now, there is nothing wrong with doing 2 requests in your chart above, 1 for 10 and 1 for 5 more. So you can do it either way is accepted. Sometimes you want a special access point to either be outdoor for outdoor coverage or like a larger, more powerful access point for your cafeteria or gymnasium or something like that. I'm still watching the chat in case anybody wants to see an example of anything in particular. My next example is going to be a switch. So I'm going to say I seek bids for equipment and I want that to be switches. I want 2 of them. And I know that I want them to be Aruba. And in this case, I'm going to be asking for managed switches. And this is my first time getting managed switches. I don't really know or understand the interface of Aruba. I'm going to say yes on this installation because I just want somebody to be able to give me some like technical support if I need it for configuring, whether that's a person on site that you buy for locally, or whether that is a person at Aruba that can help you set them up and that comes at a charge. I want to be able to cover that. Again, I am going to click down here at on my basic maintenance because many times the software for a switch does have extra added bonus features, and I want to make sure that that's covered. Again, there are 2 entities in my district and save request. And then I'm just going to add to my narrative. So switch bids requested are for Aruba. And I don't have a part number on this one. Again, brand new. So I'm going to say Aruba 48 port PoE plus, which is power over Ethernet, managed switches. And you could even add more, like with a throughput of this, or whatever other details that you want to provide there. Somebody said yesterday with dual power supply. I don't know if that's going to fly, just going to be honest. For those of you who are geeky, I do know that some of your switches come with dual power supply because they're power over Ethernet and the internet, or the power for the products, the wireless access points and things that you're plugging in can go over those PoE managed switches. Technically, dual power supply would be a second power supply would be considered redundant in some means. But if you're asking specifically for ones with dual power supply here, maybe we can get both of those cords covered in category 1. We're just going to pretend like we think it's eligible. And then when we are in category 2, sorry, we're going to pretend like we think it's eligible. We're going to put it on our 471 and spell it out. But don't be surprised if in your PIA review, they come back, or in your invoicing, they come back and say, we're not paying for both of these cords. We're only going to pay for one. But if you've asked for it because you want the dual power supply, maybe they will. We'll see. Again, if you're getting switches or you're getting wireless access points, in particular to the wireless access points, note that there is also a wireless controller. So even my Ubiquity people, many cases with your Cisco and Aruba, a separate wireless controller is required. But for my Ubiquity schools, because I seem to have a lot of schools using Ubiquity, there is a free wireless controller that you can use for Ubiquity products, but there's also a paid for one that gives you some more features. So if you put in for a wireless controller, you can go ahead and you can put in for that. And again, it's a wish list. So if you decide not to move forward, you don't have to. You can say 1 wireless controller. And notice wireless controllers can be web-based or physical on site. You can put that in here. And again, you could do a basic maintenance for that as well. Save request. Not seeing any more requests up there. I'm going to do one for those of you who have a contract with a provider that maintains your network and equipment for you. So If you have a company that does that for you and you would like to E-rate those charges, you are going to click the third button that says, I seek bids for the operation and management and monitoring of my network. And then from there, it asks you, is this equipment that you are leasing or equipment that you own? For the mass majority, it is equipment that you own. And then it says, how many school buildings are we talking about? So please know, if you're moving forward with this and you do have someone that manages things for your district, it is likely that that service provides support for your network as well as your end user devices, right? So I'm going to click Save Request, and then I'm going to say, seeking bids for managed broadband, internal broadband services for 2 buildings, approximately 450 end user and district. Gives them an idea of how big your district is and what you're talking about. Will maybe prevent some really large people from coming down to the small district to do it. Bids must separate out eligible and ineligible components. That is a statement that I would use again if you're vying for a firewall. Firewall bids must separate out eligible and ineligible components so they can tell you what percentage of your firewall is eligible. All right, I'm going to leave this page and go on to our certifications for the interest of time. So I'm going to save and continue and say I'm done here. Is there a technical contact person that is different than you? If there is, you can say yes, and you can enter that information. So if there's somebody that you keep in a server closet, but you don't let file the forms, you can list that person's name here. If there's not, and you're the technical contact person there, click no. Please do not put a technical contact person that is somebody that does not work for your district. So if you have a consultant that comes in and does your work on your district, please do not put their name. Please funnel the questions through yourself. Say save and continue. And are there any super secret special state or local laws? Unless you are aware of some, you're going to say no. And review form 470. So what this does is this puts a 470 PDF into your tasks. So you're going to go to the blue bar at the top and click on tasks. And you can see here, I have one that I'm editing. So this was one that I started the other day that I did, that I no longer intend to use. So like if you're doing a sample with me today and you leave it here in the box, or you tried one earlier, but that's not what you wanted, you're going to find that it is still listed here. And I'm going to show you how to delete that in a second. In the meantime, I'm going to keep clicking on my task till I see the one that says certify the form 470. So that's what you're looking for, the one that says certify. And the first thing you're going to want to do is click on the document download link and get a copy for yourself. Again, you're about to certify on the next page that you keep everything here for 10 years. So at least get an electronic copy of this, if not a physical copy that you print out and put in a binder. This is what your form is going to look like. Even if you just did one for category 1, you're going to see category 1 and then a blank box under category 2. That's normal, or vice versa. Save that copy, check the box, and then on certifications, we'll walk through what those are. So it says, I certify that I am a school by definition in the state of Illinois, or a library if we have any libraries with us. I will wait 28 days before I pick a winning bidder and evaluate my bids. I will retain all documentations for 10 years. I will follow all local and state procurement laws to the best of my ability. I am not a criminal. I know that my discounts can change from year to year with my poverty rating, and I acknowledge that this will be used for educational purposes and it is not internet for my house. So you're going to check all of those certifications and then click certify. I'm going to go back on mine and show you how to edit if you want to make some changes to it later. So if I want to work on this form and I need to make some changes to it, I'm going to click on the edit button. It takes you back to the very first page, and then you're just going to click save and continue to get to the page where you need to make the updates. And then you can go to whichever page that is and make your changes, add to your chart, change your narrative, etc. Again, I'm going to click on my tasks button at the top so it comes back and shows me where those are. And I'm going to go to my very first one that says delete me. And I want to get rid of that one. I'm going to click discard form. And it's going to get rid of my form for me. So if you have a practice one, you can get rid of that. And the reason that I encourage you to do that is because the system will start sending you reminders and updates towards the end of the 470 window, and it'll say you have an open 470 that you have not submitted. Do you want to? And if you have an erroneous form that's sitting there, it makes you nervous. I'm going to go to reports and landing page. So this is when you log in, when you're looking for it and you're going, where is the one that I started? It is up here in the tasks. If you click over here as a new 470, it'll open a new form for you. I'm going to come back and provide if anybody has any questions or comments, again, you're welcome to go off of mute or ask me. I'm also going to stick on the line when we're done here for anybody who might have some questions at the end and is still working. But I'm going to go forward with a few more slides to kind of wrap up our training here. There are some other funding sources that you should be aware of. One of those is ECF, and I know several of you did apply for that. Just an update on that ECF. There were 3 rounds of ECF. Rounds 1 and 2 were for last school year. Many people are going through invoicing for round 2 right now for last school year, trying to get their money out of the program. It is a challenge. So if you are facing some challenges with invoicing, please know you're not alone. They are asking for a lot of documentation on the back end. Please be prepared to give shipping information to show that you did receive the products that you asked for, as well as detailed building from your providers for internet access to show how many were activated and for what months, etc. It's real easy if you got 20 access points and you activated all of them and they were all in use. It's more difficult if you got 20 access points, you activated all of them, but only 10 of them are in use. So you got to ask some questions and answer some questions back and forth. So that's what's happening in ECF. In addition to that, for round 3, which covers this current school year, they had more requests than they had money available. So there were about $1.2 billion more in requests than was available in the fund. As a result, they are funding the poorest schools first, so they're working their way down. I am told that they are now funding 75% and greater schools. So if you find yourself in that 70 band and you are 75% or greater, you're likely going to get PIA review on those and potential funding. I originally had done my calculations and thought it would only get down to the 80%. So that's good news for those of you who are 70. In addition to that, the creators of the original bill in the legislature have put forth a bill asking for another $1.2 billion to fund the remaining requests. So that's a possibility. Whether or not that will move through the legislature, we're not sure. But don't hold your breath, but also don't give up yet. ECF will end with this 3rd round. So it will end. There may be additional funding for devices and connectivity moving forward, but it will not be called emergency. So nothing is getting funded under the emergency title anymore. As an example, we have ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program, was run out in the stimulus funding as emergency broadband benefit. It is now a permanent fund called the Affordable Connectivity Program. It is not specifically just for schools, but is a really good resource for those of you who provided hotspots in ECF and will no longer be able to do that. School homes of your students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch will be eligible for this $30 discount. That can be a wireless hotspot. It can also be wired connectivity for the home. And this is actually a program that's available to elderly citizens on Medicare and college students who have Pell Grants. So this is a wider reaching than we're typically seeing in education form, but it is eligible for education CEP or eligibility for free and reduced lunch does make your household eligible. CEP, it's the entire district. So even your wealthiest student in the doctor's home or whatever could be eligible if your school is CEP and all your staff. So you would want to reach out to the provider and ask for that ACP discount. That's $30 on your bill. Many of our providers have also put together that a $30 package for 100 megabit service. So you could get 100 megabit service in essence for free if you ask for that ACP discount and can show that you're eligible for free and reduced lunch. There is some money for infrastructure going out through NTIA nationally. This is part of the infrastructure bill, and it is dedicated for broadband connectivity nationwide. Each state had to designate an office that funding would go through, and the state of Illinois designated the Illinois Office of Broadband. So they'll be responsible for the distribution of those funds and those grant opportunities in our state. That program, if you've heard of them at all, it's probably due to Connect Illinois. So those are the grants that they have released, and it's through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. The reason that I bring this to your attention is because there are going to be a lot of opportunities for grants for communities through this program. And there are already little, like planning commissions started for asking for these funds for underserved or no service areas in our state. Please reach out to your Department of Economic Commerce locally. So in like Crawford County, that's the Crawford County Development Association. It's whoever works with your community to bring new businesses to the community and support businesses. Also, I've seen, like your Better Business Bureau there in your office, or sometimes it's a county office, or it's even like a hospital leading the charge to get more connectivity there in your community. Please do be a voice at that table. Sometimes the communities are focused on their own intentions and they don't realize that there might be a subdivision somewhere that you're aware does not have connectivity because you have students in that subdivision or that housing complex, but they're focused more on their community-based needs and aren't aware of that. So please do get to that meeting, be at that table and help for planning. They do offer some really great programs already. In the Computer Equity Network is a partnership with PCs for People. And so they will have refurbished computers that can go to low-income houses for free. So great refurbished computers through the Computer Equity Network. And they're also very active in working with mapping, both within our state and also in reply to the FCC. So right now they're doing an outreach campaign that says, hey, FCC, your map says we have connectivity in this area and we don't. And they're contesting some of the maps and some of the areas that they say have connectivity. And we know living there, you go to the top of that hill and you no longer have access. So a lot of good opportunities should be coming through the Department of Illinois Broadband moving forward. Right now in your alphabet soup of funding for the federal funding and CARES Act, you should be wrapping up your bucket 2 of ESSER funds and looking at your bucket 3 that serves this year. As a result of that, if you filled out the state survey for technology, which is now required every year, so please do that, and you indicated that you were not one-to-one at your district, you may find there are funds available for you in IWAS under a grant called Digital Equity. So please do check that out in IWAS. There is digital equity funding available to schools. And I think the deadline for asking for that funding is end of January, maybe the end of February. But please do look and see if you have an allocation for your district for digital equity. The primary purpose of those funds is to outfit school districts with one-to-one devices at all grade levels. However, if you are already outfitted or you only need a certain number of devices to round out your numbers, those funds can also be used for things like interactive whiteboards or projectors or Go Guardian software to maintain and manage your devices. Also could be used for Wi-Fi hotspots if your ECF is done. And even, hiring a coach to do integration coaching with your staff, professional learning opportunities and things like that. So do check that out. Look for that digital equity funding. Are there any more questions or comments about funding resources? Something that I've forgotten? One that I did get in one of my face-to-face sessions the other day was, what about this cybersecurity and stuff coming through the Department of Defense or something like that? That funding will be going to our state and will be given to the state network. So that's going to go through the Department of Innovation and Technology. I'm told that it will not be offered out in any kind of grant format, but will be used to enhance the services through our state network and through our network partners to enhance cybersecurity options for everyone. You can look into that yourself if you'd like to, but that's what I'm told is being done with that digital equity funding. When I did the math and broke it out as if it was given to all schools, hospitals, local governments, et cetera, it was pennied down to almost nothing for anyone anyway. So it's good that it will be used for the greater good and those extra security services and training. We'll look for those opportunities and share them with you when we find out what those are. And lastly, this is again the link to the presentation that you have. So that is the LTC 470 FY23. And if you want to find our ERate page and maybe sign up for a 471 session after the turn of the calendar year, you can go to 4ltc.org/ERate. That is a shortcut to just my ERate and funding and access pages. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to stop the recording and I will stick around for any of you who want some hands-on help or support here for the next several minutes to see if there's anything that you need one-to-one. So thank you for joining us, and please let me know if you have any questions.